What's going on, guys? Blazing here. Welcome back to the channel. Hope you're having a wonderful day, and thank you for joining me again on another Raid Shadow Legends video. Guys, today I have somebody I love to discuss things with because he always keeps me on my toes. He is always great to have a conversation with. The one, the only, Nacho. Nacho, how are you doing, my man?
I'm doing all right. How are you doing today?
I'm
Hanging in
doing
there.
great. I'm doing great. I'm doing great. How's your week been so far?
Week's been good. Staying busy with the Fire Night since the fusion's finally over here, and gotta help a whole bunch of people in my cluster. So,
Nice, nice. So, guys, today we are going to talk about preparing for the next fusion, right? We just had the fusion for Newt finish up, and it was a very important fusion for a lot of people, and it was a very difficult fusion. I don't know, am I wrong to assume that, Nacho?
oh no, this is absolutely on the more difficult side of the fusions we've seen basically since Tatura. And Elhain was a little tricky, but this one was a little trickier. So,
Yeah. So, I invited you onto the channel because I know you are a huge proponent on being able to complete these fusions with limited resources and some of the best strategies out there. And I feel like that wisdom needs to be shared with the community. So we're gonna get this off today. Before we start with the fusion, um, I want to ask you this: Was the nut fusion or Newt one that was kind of a nervous wreck for you to complete?
mainly just because he was so good, and I didn't want to mess him up. Other than that, it was pretty much just follow the normal steps, to be honest.
All right, so the first thing we're going to talk about is, we're going to use the Newt fusion as a, kind of guideline for it, right? And break down what both you and I did. So I want to ask you, we had the spider tournament first, and how did you approach that? Did you, just start right off the bat farming spider? Did you wait? Like, what was your approach for this event?
So every fusion start for 2 or 3 days before, I'll save my energy, and then they almost always delay the dungeon divers one day. Like for all the people that are impatient, they get kind of screwed on that end. So this one we double dipped the spider tournament and the champ training tournament. So I waited till the second day to start doing any spider, and I had already saved like 2,000 energy, give or take, from the couple days before, or maybe the clan shop, something like that. So usually just bust out the spider tournament right away, and then daily energy on anything else that I need.
When you said double dip between the champion training and the spider tournament, were you using like a solo farmer, or how did you do that? What stage were you
Um,
farming?
Mainly just for the Dungeon Divers event. Like you need to do both the Spider Tournament and the Training Tournament for Dungeon Divers. So you can farm stage 20 for the most efficient Dungeon Diver points. If you do have a chicken farmer, like Artak or Tyrant, something like that, uh, they can definitely do it. Or there's some 2 or 3 man teams for 20 now. Like Nut can just one shot the boss. He doesn't need a defense down or weaken or anything. He can just one shot the boss if you have good enough gear. So if you have a defense down, like Ghostborn or something like that, you could absolutely do it and do a 3 man team and get your chickens in and get a little bit extra out of it too. But yeah, mainly just for the dungeon divers. Those are the most difficult events next to the summon events. So definitely want to make sure you get every point you can for them.
So yeah, as for me, I mean, I you kind of touched up on it. I used Artak, and I farmed stage 20 with some chickens. I really do feel bad for anybody who's going to come after the fact and doesn't get Artak, because he is really a game changer for your account. But I did triple dip between the dungeon divers, champion training, and the spider tournament. And that's kind of one of the things I do is I always wait until I can get at least two or three events done at the same time, right? I feel like that's pretty much like one of your best ways to uh, make your management resources better, for at least these fusion events. So this next part, we had the dragon tournament, we had the dungeon divers tournament that actually began a couple of days afterwards, and then the champion training tournament cut off right at the end of dragon. So I feel we weren't able to like triple dip the points. But what did you do for this? Did you hoard energy from the completion of the first event to this one, or did you have something else in mind?
Yeah, so from the second day of the fusion, I actually had completed both the spider tournament and a champ training event. So then I held energy for 2 more days. So at this point, I had 1,000 energy, 1,200 energy, something like that, 1,500 energy after the dailies that day, and I just busted out dragon. basically right away. Boom. Uh, Actually, no, I had to wait for the Dungeon Divers event. Yeah, so Saturday, the third day it was on. Yeah, you could hit with the Dungeon Divers event right at the beginning. So yeah, that was right when I got it done. And at that point, I had been saving energy for 5 days. Yeah, 5 days. So Dragon just boom, pow, done. Champ training helped the Dungeon Divers as well, but you couldn't really double dip or triple dip it with the Dragon tournament because of the timing. You got a little bit of time if you got lucky with your event schedule, but Dragon ends on the same day Champ training started. So either way, it wasn't really that big of a deal. This Dungeon Divers, I think, is where I started to use a couple gems because the champ training didn't line up very well, and I didn't want to like just
You
didn't
didn't want to
really
miss
want
it.
just yeah, I didn't want to miss it.
Okay.
So we just got it done. Yeah.
Okay. Now, when you were farming dragon, did you farm food with it as well, or did you just go speed team, go for it, and just get it done?
No, I mean champ training wasn't until the very last day, so I just busted it out.
Okay. So for myself, actually, I did the exact opposite. I wasn't really concerned about trying to complete it quickly and save my energy. I think at this point, I was just finishing the champion training event, and I was moving into it. So what I did is I just again loaded up my Artec, and then just had him go in stage 20 solo it to try to get me the extra chickens because I wanted to try to make sure that my like you said, your 3 stars and 4 stars, that your 4 stars especially that are going to take a lot more energy are already level to where you need them. So for myself, I felt like that was maximizing, even though I couldn't triple dip, but then it set me up in a better place for my champion trading.
Absolutely. And that's something that a lot of people forget about. Like you actually don't get very many champ training points from running dungeons, like whatsoever. Unless you're tournament leveling, which you shouldn't be doing in dungeons. It's not exactly what they're for. Uh, you just don't get that many points. You'll get a couple hundred, but having them at max level is the game changer. Absolute game changer.
Agreed. Agreed. All right, so now we're about halfway through the fusion, and we have the most exciting event for people, which is Ice Golem. I myself love Ice Golem. I think it's got some of the best visuals in the game. But what do you think?
Oh, I love Ice Golem. I think it's one of the best dungeons now, actually.
Yeah, that
Like,
reflex gear, man, is pretty OP.
yep,
So,
absolutely love it.
so here we were, depending on how you played it, you were able to kind of double dip and triple dip points for a little bit of time. But what did you end up doing?
At this point, I had saved energy for 4 days. So I had enough energy just sitting there to get the Ice Golem tournament done when I needed to. So I waited for the Dungeon Divers on Wednesday. So it actually would have been 5 days. Yeah, 5 days. So just got it done right then. Uh, well, not right then, but right at the start of the Dungeon Divers, and just got a couple chickens up with champion training, used a few brews, and got that done as well. So at this point, we're just all caught up. We were preloaded for every single event that needed energy, and then we just used a few brews for the two champion training events. So haven't
Uh,
really didn't get caught with our pants down at any point here. So
Good, good. Did you what kind of team did you use for this? Did you just use a speed farm team, or did you like actually, do again a solo farmer?
yeah, I just used a 4-man team actually, and just farm one chicken at a time because that's all you really need.
Okay.
Um, yeah,
So you had a 4 man team and then you threw in one chicken and was able to get it done, which is pretty solid. Ice Golem's pretty much one of the more difficult ones to try to get a solo campaign farmer because the boss will just the frigid vengeance will just smack you, especially if you take like a brimstone proc on the boss. So, but surprisingly, Artak can solo that stage as well too. So,
fun fact: Brimstone doesn't proc his passive.
really, I did not
Nope,
know that. I
does
did
not.
not know that. So I guess brimstone is a solid choice to go on the Ice Golem then. So for myself, I actually I didn't use Artec for this. I actually used my bad Alcazard because he's positive affinity, I believe it was. And I did stage 25 instead of 20 because I wanted the increased chance in some of the gear for the reflex set, right? I wasn't going to farm hard mode with it, but I did do stage 25. I am able to solo it with a bad Alcazard, so I did so, which was actually quite great. So we were able to triple dip between the Dungeon Divers and the Ice Golem and the Champion Training. And on this one, it actually kind of worked out well because you were able to use Ice Golem for both dungeon divers, both on the second one and the third one, right?
Hmm.
Especially because the third one was really important because you had the rare void champion in there, and that was the only event that you could not miss, right?
No, you couldn't miss the champ chase either.
Yeah. The champ chase and the summon rush are going to be the next talking points.
Well,
Um,
that's not this was saying the other rare you couldn't miss was that the
yeah,
void rares were where they bottlenecked you. So
yeah. So now we're coming up to the final stretch. The last dungeon we have is Fire Knight. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't know of a single champion that can solo farm this, right? So, trying to get some food champs in there and being 100% efficient, even at stage 20, it's kind of hard. So, how did you approach this?
I just gemmed the Fire Knight tournament. At this point, there were Dungeon Divers 3. You didn't have enough to finish it, really. The champ training event, we already double dipped for Dungeon Divers 2. And Art of and Ice Golem, we already did for Dungeon Divers 2 as well. So we just gemmed Fire Knight. And then the Dungeon Divers was basically doubled the points of Fire Knight. So no matter what you did, you had to do extra. There was some time here to like to use your daily energy. I just got it done.
Yeah, I agree with that too. That was the first time that I actually had to dip into my gems, and I just ran that whole dungeon right off the bat. I didn't even bother to wait. It was just one of those things. All right, let's just go get it done. Final stretch. I don't want to miss this out, right? So
Yep, absolutely. And like I said, I could have saved maybe 2 or 300 gems or something like that in the end just by like waiting out my daily energy, but that'd have been it. So at this point, I'd only used maybe 500 or 700 gems total between the two champion training events to get a little bit of tournament leveling done. Yeah, so I really didn't use that much up to this point.
all right, so our dungeon divers are done. Our events for Dragon, Spider, Ice Golem, Fire Knight are all done. We've got the champion training done, and then we are faced with summoning events, which I feel are kind of the biggest hurdles that a player has, especially if they're just working on Nightmare Clan boss, or maybe their clan's only downing Nightmare but isn't able to down hard mode, and they're just getting the rewards for one. So walk me through, what did you do for the summon rush?
So the summon rush is always sacreds. I save my sacreds exclusively for fusions. I skip every 2x and I use them all for fusions. So the summon rush was pretty straightforward. You could just get the rare. You didn't need to get the epic. So and that was only at 2250 or 2350, something like that. Uh, so the four sacreds and a couple mysteries, and I was already done with the summon rush. Wasn't too bad. This one with the champ chase, they made it a little more difficult. Usually they give us a couple events after the second summon event. Like if you look at any of the previous fusions, the Champ Chase tournament, they kind of threw a wrench in here because it was the very last event that you could do. And usually they throw a couple after it. The dungeon events are after the Champ Chase. So if you pull a rare or something like that, you're like, oh, hey, I can skip Fire Knight now. They didn't give us that opportunity here. And that was honestly the biggest kicker because you couldn't front load anything. Like you had to do everything up until that point, and then if you pulled shards on Friday, you could maybe skip Fire Knight if you pulled a Void rare. So they definitely caught us a little bit with that, but then they made the point requirements not that bad at all, um, whatsoever. To be honest, the Champ Chase tournament they gave us 750 free points with the epics. So immediately the requirement for the fusion actually went down to 2600 or whatever it was. And then you could use any other broad modes that you got or anything like that along the way. Relic keepers as well. So if you were farming champ training, maybe you did a few of the stages that give the rares for the relic keeper fusion to like round off a couple of them. That would have gave you 250 points a piece or 350 for the broad modes. So I really didn't think it was that difficult. Just the timing of it made it so you had to give up a lot of your opportunity. Um, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I definitely the champ chase left a really bad taste in my mouth, I think. I see what you're talking about with the points that you need. If you had saved everything up and didn't try to use those champions to, level them up in certain artifact enhancements and all that stuff, I can see, saving them up. This actually part of this fusion did coincide on a CVC, so I feel like a lot of people might have spent resources on that. But as for myself, I came prepared. I told myself that I was going to go in for the summon rush and go for the rare and the epic. And the main reason I did that is because he was such an important fusion that I felt like if I missed an event, by just, goofing up or, whatever it might be, it would cost me the event. So I was like, you know what? Worst case scenario, I get an extra rare or an extra epic out of it. Um, you know, Best case scenario, I get the fusion and the epic out of it as well too, right? As for the champion chase, I mean, I very rarely pull shards on those kinds of events, unless I'm on my alt account and something like that. But for those events, I usually save all my Broadma fusions. I work on Relic Keeper. Even if you're just doing the what is it, the two rares for the Broadma fusion, those are still 50 points apiece, right?
Yep.
And those are only what is it, uncommon champions that you need to get. And
Hmm.
so those are pretty easy to obtain. You just open enough mystery shards and you're pretty good. And if you're doing the champ training and all of that stuff, you can level those champions as you go. So there's definitely that to go for. And, as long as you're holding on to every fusion in the past, like a champ frag or whatever, you can complete these pretty easily without having to, blow too much. Now, how would you tell somebody to, if they don't have the sacred shards, what else could they do for these summon rushes?
Mysteries. It's the only other thing that you can really do for mysteries, and then voids. And that's why Summon Rush is the most difficult. The game gives you enough sacreds every single month for free to complete every single fusion if you're doing Hard Doom Tower. You get two sacreds from that, then you can get one from 3v3, and you can get one from your monthly quest. And then if you get one from Clan Boss in the entire month, so even if you're doing Nightmare, I guess then you wouldn't get your Doom Tower ones. But the game gives you just enough to complete the summon rushes. So as long as you save your sacreds, you will complete every single summon rush.
Okay. So, doing clan boss every day is kind of a must. Working on your hard mode of the Doom Tower is kind of a must. The last one that, you kind of touched up on was the 3v3, which is, I think, probably one of the most difficult ones that people can do.
Oh, absolutely.
Even if you just sneak in once a month, that's fine as long as you're in like Silver 4. But I think that's one of the more difficult ones. Now, um, for this, I've seen a lot of players actually go on and off, right? So one event or one fusion, they'll use their sacred shards. The next one, they use their mystery shards, which I guess works, right? Because it gives you some time to get those 3,000 shards that you might need or those 4,500 shards if you're continuously, leveling up food champions. I feel like that's actually a pretty good idea. I don't know. What do you think?
Um, I kind of disagree. So the way the fusion rotations work is every third fusion has Sacred 2x in it, and every single fusion has a 2x event during the weekends. So there's actually quite like if Summon Rush coincides with 2x voids, you don't need to pull Sacreds. You just pull voids because you're pulling on 2x.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of overlap with the fusions that rotate every third fusion, basically, where you'll have the shard that you want in the 2x on the fusion that you want. So I really don't agree with this because the game gives you roughly 15 sacreds a month, actually, between Ultra Nightmare Clan Boss, and the few sources we talked about, unless you get, like, kind of unlucky. But, I mean, in general, I don't really agree with this.
Okay. Okay. I mean, it's what some people do that, are earlier in the game that don't have the resources to try to get it, So, now let me ask you, when it comes to the summoning events, you said you don't pull on 2x sacreds because you hold them. Uh, do you have a particular number of each shard that you hold on to, like you said, your zero number, for a fusion, or do you just kind of like only hold the sacreds?
I only care about the sacreds. Um, Everything else I'll pull whenever I want. As long as I have the sacreds, I can do any fusion, to be honest. At this point, at least where my account's at, I have like 6 or 7 Broadmas waiting all the time. I have a handful of Relic Keepers waiting all the time, and like between 5 and 10 Sacreds. So most fusions are never a problem. You can save shards from the time they announce it to the time the first summon event starts, and you'll be able to finish it.
Okay. Now, let's put ourselves in a, new player that just came in, is maybe 45, 50 days in, sees this fusion, says, I want to go for it. What advice do you have on the shard summoning at that point?
I hope you've saved all of your shards.
Okay.
um,
Okay.
the first fusion you do, I hope you also do it before you're level 50, because your point requirements are half of what they are once you get above level 50. Um, So yeah, those are the two biggest things. And if you're not hitting clan boss, you have to save all your shards. There's no other way around it. Summon rush is not doable without shards. So
Okay. Okay. Not even mystery shards.
I mean that's shards.
So,
But
all
you're
right.
not. But typically, you're not going to get enough mystery shards on a new account to do a summon rush. To get 2,000 mystery shards is like 12,000 energy.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Okay, so we've gone through the events, we've gone through the summon rushes. Now we have the most resource intense part, I feel, which is the artifact enhancement events. People, I feel, struggle with these because everybody complains that silver is an issue in the game. Do you agree or disagree with that?
Completely disagree. I think people
Okay,
are just bad at spending their silver.
okay. Walk me through how you approach these events.
So we started the very first artifact enhancement event I talked about. We just save silver. I created a 0 for my account. Like I'll never go below 15 mils of silver. So I always have enough for any fusion, basically, no matter what happens. Uh, and all of the gear that you're farming along the way, you can level it to 8 once the artifact enhancement comes around and stuff like that. So uh, between that and the pieces that you're going to check out at taking the 12, you should have your artifact enhancement event done. Basically, it's going to be like I think this one was like 3,700 points or something like that. For the first couple of them, and then it really isn't that big. It's like a 10 to 15 mil silver investment to take things to 12 to do it. So as long as you pre-plan any bit for the artifact enhancement events and have any amount of silver, you should be able to do it. Each of the dungeon tournaments also nets you between like 4 and 7 mil, except for Ice Golem, which you get like 4 mil total if you're lucky. um, so yeah, as long as you've just prepared a little bit with your silver, and not just spend it all down to 0 every single day you play the game, the artifact enhancement event shouldn't have been anything.
So for myself, being an in-game player at the current state that I'm at, I find it very difficult to, at least for me, find enough pieces of gear that I am going to keep because I am really, really picky about the gear that I pick. That's got to have specific stats. And farming stage 20s isn't really going to give me a lot of upgrades, right? The upgrades basically come from when we run the 3x speeds or that kind of stuff, for like the Savage for the Fire Knight. And even at that, unless it's a specific piece of gear, it's very hard. So usually for myself, I probably have maybe a total of 7 or 8 pieces throughout these events that I'm trying to level. I find myself bringing a lot of things up to 8 and then selling them. Do you find yourself doing that at all, or do you just hoard enough gear to be able to use it throughout these events?
The more end game you are, the higher you have to level all of your stuff to even sell it.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
So all of my gear for me to even look at my Lego pieces that I'm keeping have to go to 16. I can't keep them at 8. So any potential piece is going almost all the way to max always. 6-star epics, they have to have 3 substats that matter, and they have to roll a 4th substat if they're not in a good set. So
Okay.
like a lot of times I'm not leveling 6-star epics, but the Legos that I level, I'm taking them all the way up if they've got good stats, basically, because I have to see every roll that it's going to give me. This path event actually, I went through and upgraded literally every single piece of Mythic and Lego gear on my account to 16.
Oh,
So that's the kind of depth that I need to have before I can even look at gear to start truly cleansing it. So I'm looking at very large pools of gear most of the time, like 2, 3, 4 months at a time before I'll do a gear cleanse. Like you should see my stone skin right now. I have probably 30 rows of stone skin and I have 10 rows of perception because I need to wait until I have the most amount of stone skin possible, oil the most amount of pieces possible, and then go through my best of my best. And then that's how I can really assess my oil use. So that's a
okay.
whole nother topic. Whole nother topic. But like the gear management itself, I do not find that I have nothing to upgrade. Like that's not a problem for me.
So let's talk about a new or mid-game player who's not looking at their account the same way we are. That's not going to bring a piece up to 16 because right off the bat, that's what we know we're going to keep. Um, what would you give them as advice for these events? I mean, we had three, I believe it was 1, 2, 3 artifact enhancement events. What would you suggest to them would be the best thing that they could do for these
Um,
events?
Upgrade pieces you're gonna use. I know that this sounds pretty basic, but at the end of the day, the earlier you are, the more you just need pieces that have speed, crit, and accuracy. So level pieces that have those, and worst case scenario, you're probably going to use that piece on a faction war champion as long as it meets any kind of usable standard, right? So if you have a piece that has 18% crit rate, 5 speed, maybe crit damage on it or accuracy, something like that, like a faction war champion is going to use that. Like absolutely, somebody's going to use that. So try and focus on pieces that you're actually going to use on your account because a lot of them can be effective at 12. You don't have to 16 everything on your account. And also go through a lot of your rares at this time and take them to 8. Don't just level them every time you farm anything. Let them hoard up until you have an event and then go through and take everything to 8. Really allow yourself to get the biggest pool of gear possible for you to look at before you move on to your next step. And it's basically always the best way to approach it. And it's just going to be lengthening that time to allow yourself to find better pieces for less investment. So,
I agree. For myself, this fusion, I was actually working on a viewer's account, Stevens, and I was starting the account with 3 and 4 star gear, which was horrendous. It was so hard to try to get like the spider team going because we didn't really have any gear, and we were lacking the amulets, we were lacking everything, and it came to the point where doing these events, I was taking the blues, 5 star blues, I was leveling everything up to 8. From there, as I started doing each event, I wasn't leveling anything past 8 until actually the third artifact enhancement event, where I kind of re-cleansed everything and said, okay, these are the pieces of gear that I'm going to keep. This is actually what's going to make it to 12. And then let's continue on at this point. Let me see what else I can get before I start moving over to 16. I really, unless I was equipping the piece of gear on a champion, I was not leveling up to 16. I didn't even roll it up to 16 to see what it would get until it was something I actually felt that I was going to use. So we've talked about everything. We've talked about the dungeon divers. We've talked about the artifact enhancements, champions training, summon rushes. Last but not least, we have arena. What do you got to say about those?
don't get caught with your pants down. I find that arena, because it takes no resources whatsoever, this tournament creeps up on people all the time. All the time. They'll be like, oh, it's the last day of arena and I haven't done 200 points, which isn't a lot of points. Like, it's like 20 fights in gold 4. If you're in gold 1, however, that's like 80 fights.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. Arena can definitely sneak up on you if you don't pay attention, and it can be the most costly event to do next to summoning because it's 40 gems per refill, and as you said, one event can cost you 400 or 500 gems depending on where you are in the bracket. So being on top of that and doing that every day is big, right? Especially when you have like 3 days to do it, 4 days to do it. You gotta be on top of that. I find those being the ones that usually sneak up on me and like, oh wait, I have to do this event. Like, I don't even think about it. But so make sure you guys take those into account. So we've talked about everything. Do you happen to have any tips that you use for the fusion? That you kind of keep on the DL that you don't want to let everybody know, but you want to share with this community.
Um, the biggest thing is just don't zero your account out. Honestly, that's the best thing you can do for any bit of your resources. You name the resource. If you have 0 of it, you did it wrong most of the time. And that's really the mentality to get with the game. The game's a marathon, not a sprint. You may have sprinty points in it where you need to move faster than others, but in general, just don't zero yourself out.
Now, what about energy? You said don't zero yourself out. Do you consider that a resource that you never want to zero out, or do you want to like use all your energy throughout the day to kind of build up for the next fusion or build up for the next step?
Your gem stash is your energy stash. There's nothing in the game that even comes close to the use of gems as what energy will do for you because of the events that it enables you to do and the rewards that those events enable you to do. So, in general, you want to just work down your energy every single day so you get the most amount of gear possible and things of that nature while there's nothing major going on. And then when there's something big like a fusion and you're like, oh, hey, I only have 1200 gems, maybe save a couple bit energy the first day or two before it starts or something like that, or maybe even a whole week. So I think energy should absolutely be used basically as much as you can, especially the earlier you are. Every single dungeon run could actually be an upgrade for your account, even though it might not be for mine now that I'm pretty end game. If I was 45 days in, F15 speed lifesteal shield would be crazy. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? So you really got to just put the energy in, do your runs. My one buddy, he's got a really long team right now. He's sitting on like 10,000 energy. He's farming Dragon 20. It's literally like 40 hours for him to farm it. But that's all that potential sitting there for him, and he's never going to realize it if he doesn't use the energy. So
So as for myself, I mean, the biggest thing I can tell everybody is the moment you can get a solo farmer for your dungeons, especially for Dragon, Fire, and Ice Golem, not Fire Knight, sorry, for Dragon, Ice Golem, and Spider. I wish we could farm out Fire Knight with a single champion. That would be great. Make sure you do it, especially now that we have this Artak Vengeance Path. I feel like this is pretty huge for your account. You can go through and you can pick up a soul stone or a blessing for him that's pretty significant for your account, and over the long term, as an investment, is going to be great because it's going to help you accomplish every fusion pretty easily. Remember, trying to double dip and triple dip on points is the big thing. Real quick, what did you think about this Path of Vengeance?
I love it. I absolutely love it. They did the thing with the Razelvarg right after his fusion, and now they're doing this as well for a champion that people are absolutely going to use through the end game. Like you will use this guy always on your account. So I love that they're giving the souls up for it, especially up to a 5-star. And you don't have to get the 5-star. You
Yeah.
could just get the 3-star.
Yeah, I think this one's really solid. And I'm really a fan of how they did each one separately, because
Hmm.
it really depends on if you've already pulled something, then you can go and target a specific one. So kudos to Plarium for that one. But so I like doing shout outs on the channel. Do you have a shout out for us?
I'm definitely going to shout out my cluster leader, Haji, this time. Fantastic guy. He's always helping anybody he can, always making space, moving people. He's one of the best cluster leaders I've ever had the experience of being under, and definitely big shout out Mob and Haji.
All right, all right. So before we let everybody go, let everybody know where they can find you.
So you can find me on Twitch at Nacho Plays 50 or on YouTube and then personal tool on YouTube. I'm gonna get that switched over to Nacho Plays here eventually. But yeah, there's the tags.
All right. Guys, if you already haven't, his links will be in the description below. Make sure you go over to YouTube, give him a sub. How many subscribers are you at right now?
I think I'm at 250, something like that, 220, 250, somewhere in there.
Okay, so let's get everybody to go over and subscribe to Nacho. Make sure you follow him on Twitch as well. He's great to hang out with, great to talk with, and we'll definitely keep you on your toes. And is definitely not scared to call it out as it is. And then you can always see him on Sundays with us, where we stream 3 p.m. EST right here with the rest of the Tolarian Knights, and we have some pretty interesting conversations. So. As always, guys, much love, much appreciation. Be safe, be well, be good to each other. And we'll catch you guys on the next one.